Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Matt Stevens, working on Module 1 for EDL 803. This was actually a really cool module for me. It's basically action research for building administrators, the course that we have. But this one I don't really have a lot of knowledge base when it came to action research, so this one was really kind of neat for me. But let's go ahead and introduce a little bit about myself. I was a graduate from Fort Hays State in 2004. I'm actually a 15-year teacher who is alternatively certified. I thought I wanted to work in the corporate world before I did this. I have taught in four different areas in Oklahoma since I've started teaching that 15-year long road. But I taught in the Moore School District down here, Union, which is up in Tulsa. I've also worked at a university at Oklahoma City University, and now I'm currently at Mustang School District here in western part of the metro in Oklahoma City. I teach U.S. history and government, and it's very, very enjoyable. If you look here, I have a wife named Tanya, a daughter named Taylor, who actually goes to Fort Hays State University, older son named Tristan, and a younger daughter named Savannah. I was born and raised in Junction City, Kansas, which is about 2 hours away from Hays. I've coached wrestling at high school and collegiate levels. I also am a volunteer for USA Wrestling and a coach for them as well. I'm an avid Chiefs fan, and also I volunteer at Ducks Unlimited. So that's just a little bit more personal look at myself. A little bit about my school district. Our high school has roughly 4,000 students at it. It's one of the biggest schools in Oklahoma. So you can kind of know that my district follows suit with that. It's a pretty large district. We have about 1,000 plus kids per class. So it's a pretty large district. So that'll kind of give you a little background as we're moving forward here talking about action research. I'm just trying to do this critical reflection a little bit. So what is action research? I actually took a quote from Clark, Porath, Theli, and Job. Action research is an approach to educational research that is commonly used by educational practitioners and professionals to examine and ultimately improve their pedagogy and practice. The one thing that I got out of this is that action research really is trying to stay positive. If you look here, like it says, a major goal of action research is to create positive change for students and adults that are involved. I think that was one thing that I really found throughout doing all this research that is so important. I think if you start looking at your research in a negative manner, that it's going to cause you some problems down the road. A couple more purposes for action research is that it's going to answer questions about effectiveness of specific instructional strategies. You really can wind it down and research and really look. And this is one thing that I noticed about myself I feel like I do action research on a daily basis, but not in the capacity that I feel where I can really make a difference and prove the way that I teach is effective. So I think, me looking with my team members and collaboratively coming up with an action research project would be kind of a neat idea. Action research also helps make expert teachers through giving them the means to reflect on their teaching habits and behaviors. And I think that term reflection is so very important to remember as you're going through this. The four main types of action research: you have individual, which could be teacher or student, collaborative, school-wide, district-wide, and those were from Calhoun. Goals of action research. Positive change is most important, like I talked a little bit about before. So identifying specific behaviors that will move you closer to your vision of success. I got that from the Embrace Action Research in 2020 there. But I think that's important to remember is like you have a goal when you start looking at action research. Like, what is your ultimate goal? Like, you want to improve what you are doing. Okay. So this also helps provide the opportunity to build and support healthy learning communities. And I think, we talked about on the goals for this module, and that's one of the main things is, improving, getting to a spot where your curriculum is working efficiently and that your students are getting the most out of it. Action research is also professional development. I think a lot of people don't understand that as you go through, doing your own action research, that you really kind of learn a little bit about yourself and, just tools that you can put in that toolbox to use down the road. And then also to help foster a culture of inquiry. Teachers need to ask questions. They do. I think sometimes that we think we know everything and we get set in our ways, but I think it's really important that we ask questions and also do the research. If you can look here, I've kind of added a little chart over here. I really found this to be interesting. I got this from Spencer, but talking about identifying the problem, developing a plan, collecting data, analyzing that data, informing conclusions, reporting the results, and then adjusting the theory and begin again. The one thing I want a lot of people to know is that action research doesn't have to end. It can be a continuous cycle. As soon as you get through one and you look at your data and you find out that you need to make some changes, just keep running this circle, consistently. The main steps that I found was planning, identifying the problem, and then developing a plan how you're going to do your research. Action, obviously that is collecting the data, putting it together. Analysis, once you collect that data, you're going to put it together in an organized manner. You're going to analyze it, and then you're obviously going to report the results. And then conclusion, and the main thing that I really got off from this is like the reflection part is so important, and that's also where you implement change, or if the change wasn't clear, you can adjust your theory on how you were developing your plan or how you looked at it, or the problem that you thought that you had, and you can adjust it a little bit, and then you can start the process all over again. A little bit about action research versus traditional research. I thought this one was pretty interesting because, whenever I thought of school research, I always thought of like data, which you're definitely going to have to collect data, but I didn't think about research as being something that you don't have to have test scores for. And I think that, when I looked at the case study of the math teacher in one of our resources, and they talked about how kids got involved and they asked them questions, and that's the data they used. And that wasn't ever something that I looked at. A lot of times when in my school district, it's like test scores this, semester that. And I think, action research really focuses on collaboration of all parties and times. And, I think sometimes traditional research, the subjects that you're trying to do the research on, they don't have any input. And I think that that's an issue. Like, you don't go to the kid and be like, okay, so you got a 68. What, obviously you're successful here. Was there something that we did to reinforce that content that made you understand it a little bit better? Also, action research really focuses on areas of growth and not deficiencies. And I think that's a major theme of action research. I think sometimes when I look at test scores and traditional research, I look at like, why are we missing this question, right? I don't think we try to find the positive, like, oh, we did really well on this. Like, what did we do to do that? I think action research can be more of a positive mindset than traditional research. Also, action research really dissolves the barriers between the participants and the researchers. Many times you see the teacher actively participates in the research themselves, and sometimes you even see the students actively participate and do their own data collection during this time period. Common problems, ethical issues is always one that you got to be careful of, making sure that you're not ethically doing anything wrong, not being sensitive to any matters which arise, which require reflection and resolution. Some people won't change. They'll just stay the course. You also see people that collect data at all costs. Okay. People have a low flexibility. And then also some difficulties in getting permissions to use institutional data that may not be public record. Maybe you have trouble getting in touch with those. Projects can get too big. Maybe you're taking too big of a stab at something when you need to start at a much smaller set. All right. Not having a reflexive mindset. And I think this is one where some people, you really don't look at yourself. And I think you really have to have a reflexive mindset for this type of research to work. And then individual views implication, because if you want a certain view, you're going to try to make sure that outcome and impact of outcome matches that view that you're looking at. And I think you have to go into this action research with a big open mind. One question that I saw that I really liked and I put on here is it problematic to view variables in a social setting, school and classroom, as being a casual relationship due to its complexity? And this in turn doesn't make it not possible to control the variables or the outcome. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, we have to really be aware that school is a social setting. So there's going to be a lot of variables and outcomes. And sometimes it really does make it impossible for us to control and research like how we can't just have like this group, and it's not cut in stone. So I think action research has a lot of flexibility in it. And I think that is one thing that we solve problems with traditional research. Talking about evaluating this. So I'm just going to kind of sum this up, but my teaching in many ways could benefit from action research because we do project-based teaching in my department. We try to do, use history things in a modern type of idea. So it kind of can be relatable to kids, because we all know that if a kid doesn't, relate to the content and how is that going to affect their life, then they're not buying in. And I think it's important to understand that when we do this action research, that you're really going to get into the nuts and bolts of if your students are really engaging into those things. And I said, we have noticed that using the content in current day settings has made a huge impact on our students and retention and engagement. Doing action research to help get collaboration from our students could be so beneficial in making sure our view is actually what is happening. And I think, we feel like it's successful, but we don't have any data to really back that up. So I think action research and using that to evaluate my teaching and what we're doing is very important. Talking about defending this, this idea, action research in its collaborative formats really helps students and teachers at the same time. And I wanted to talk about that, is that looking at these really helps show progress in the teacher's professional development. Students will benefit from this progress in many ways, directly or indirectly, through improvement of the teacher's craft. All right. Involving students by having them collaborate through their own data collection will also help students take control of their own learning. So action research, just defending it, can definitely help teachers and students. And I think it helps them simultaneously. It doesn't just help one at one time and one at the other, because students are going to benefit from teachers reflecting on the data, but also students can reflect on themselves if they collect a little bit of data along the way as well. Just talking a little bit here about personal professional use thoughts, misgivings on action research is I participate in action research with my content team. We're always trying to come up with new ideas, and then we sit down and we reflect on those ideas. But I think really learning these processes and steps is going to help me even further that. My interdisciplinary team, so we're in a team type setting here, so working with English teachers and math teachers, has discussed an action research project with our struggling kids. I think we're really trying to find a way to best help those kids learn individually. Maybe that would be use of technology for those teaching gaps that we're noticing, or finding alternative teaching methods to reach more students. I have not been able to be part of a school-wide action research project, but we do have something new this year called Win Time, and I'm definitely going to suggest maybe doing an action research project with that. We do student academic interventions. I'm really interested to see how effective those are, and if the students feel that they're being effective. Success of struggling students. Struggling students aren't the only thing that I probably should have focused on here. I could have talked about like, hey, why are the students that aren't struggling, why are they successful? Like, what are they getting out of our school? And I think that's a great action research project right there in itself. School can really benefit from the action research, especially mine. Action research does not have to be difficult, and I think that's what we overthink, is that's a misgiving, that you have to have this big elaborate research project. And, as I was reading, just like the simplest thing to focus on and asking a question about or seeing a problem with, and then doing a little bit of data collection could really be more beneficial than this big elaborate plan. I think also my school needs to build more structure for teacher collaboration, as far as we do have shared planning and problem solving time, but we don't have steps put in place by our administration to do action research in the school. And I think, I'm sure I'm like everyone else, that we don't have a lot of time. And I wish we had more steps and a better sense of how can we do action research projects to really improve our school. Last but not least, correlation, relevant, and reflection. I really kind of like these three things at the end of all these modules. But like I said, this submission really hits home with the standards for this assignment. Really talks about how, the cycle, the research and its cycle That means that change will continuously happen, will help change with diversity, digital citizenship, and equity. I also think action research being based on collaboration positively affects all parties involved.